This is Chengdu-style tomato and egg noodle soup. It's fried egg and cooked noodles smothered in a rich tomato broth. While it's not the most famous Sichuan noodle soup out there, frankly speaking, this recipe is probably one of the very most delicious we've shared on this channel. It's just really good. You have to try it. Because the combinations of tomato and egg is the definition of comfort food in China. It's a go-to for feeding kids. It's in canteens. It's a home-cooked staple. It's at restaurants. You can find it at all four corners of the country. And the color of the national flag of China, it's sometimes even being referred to as tomato and egg. People just love it that much. Then in the early aughts in Chengdu, a noodle shop called Huaxing Jiandanmian presented this combination at a particularly right time and right place. Just like a lot of Chinese cities, there was a clubbing district started to form in Chengdu in the early aughts. Famous local spots like Empty Bottles started clustering around Yulin Road, where the aforementioned noodle shop was also around the corner. And because when Sichuan people go out to drink, they love their midnight snacks. So when you have a comforting tomato and egg noodle soup, together with a bunch of drunken young crowds, both at the same corner, late into the night after a lot of alcohol, it's no wonder that this soothing bowl of tomatoes and egg became an institution among that generations of Chengdu locals. Now, of course, over the years, Chinese cities changed, and reportedly, Huaxing Jiandanmian went downhill before it reopened elsewhere. But in the meantime, tomato and egg noodles in Chengdu caught on. These days, one of the most famous shops is called Kangji Jiandanmian, which is what we base our versions from. And now I'll hand it off to Chris, who will show you how to make it.
Okay, so to get started with our tomato and egg, you're going to need some tomato, which unfortunately is the first thing that we're going to have to think about. Because while for this dish, you don't need the maximally in-season tomatoes grown on the volcanic slopes of Mount Vesuvius, it is going to help if your tomatoes actually kind of taste like tomato. For example, in Chengdu, something that we've heard that some of the best noodle shops do is that they'll go around, they'll hunt for the best tomatoes that they can find, and then when they find them, they'll freeze them for this dish. Or for us, living in Yunnan, we're a little bit spoiled here because with all the little microclimates, we can generally get reasonable quality tomatoes pretty much all year round. So I was thinking on this problem, and my American brain really started to churn, because in the US, we usually crack that nut with canned tomatoes. And so I was thinking, I don't know, maybe that could also work here. So we tried it during testing, and yes, absolutely, this totally does work too. So we've got 3 tomato options for you today. First, if you are happy with your fresh tomato quality, what you can do is just grab 650 grams worth, cut a little X into them, boil them to peel them, like always, and then toss in a blender together with a half cup water, quarter teaspoon salt, and a tablespoon of Shaoxing wine, blending it on the smoothie setting to a smoothie-like consistency, and then setting it aside. But canned, I promise, is also really quite delicious. So you can also just use 350 grams of canned tomato, including its sauce, obviously, crush the tomato with your hands, and then mix it with a cup and a half of water, a quarter teaspoon salt, and a tablespoon of Shaoxing wine. And then finally, option 3, what I actually liked the very best was a mix of fresh and canned tomatoes. So if you wanted to go that route, you could use 450 grams of fresh tomatoes of any quality, mix that with, I don't know, maybe 175 grams or so of the canned tomato, and then blend that together with the water, salt, and Shaoxing from option number 1. Which brings us to the second thing that we're going to need with this dish, and that's lard. The very best shops in Chengdu, what they'll do is they'll fry their tomato soup base in lard, and then they'll also end up frying their eggs also in lard. Now, I know that not everybody has a whole bunch of lard handy in their kitchen, and then also some brands of mass-produced lard are definitely higher quality than others. So what we decided to do with our recipe today was this. Start with fatty pork belly, from which we'll render out the lard to use for the dish, and then we'll use the leftover crispy pork belly as a topping. Now, to be crystal clear, we've never ever seen crispy pork belly like this as a topping for this dish in Sichuan. But it is pretty delicious, and I don't think that it would really feel out of place in Chengdu, my opinion. So we'll just slice up 300 grams of fatty pork belly into thin strips, and then toss that in a bowl and mix it with an 1/8 teaspoon salt, 1/8 teaspoon MSG, and a 1/2 teaspoon soy sauce. Then toss in a generous glug, or about 3 tablespoons of oil, mix that well, and then add that all to a cool pot or wok. Then, over a medium flame, slowly begin to render out that lard until the pork is brown and dry and crispy. This is going to take a hot second, about 15 or maybe even 20 minutes or so. But once you're at about this point with the pork, remove it, transfer it over to a paper towel lined plate, and of course, reserve all that lard. We're going to need 4 tablespoons worth for the soup. We're using a clay pot here today, but a Dutch oven or any braising vessel, totally fine. And then we'll go in with our aromatics. This was just 4 scallions, white part removed and minced, an inch of ginger, also minced, 4 cloves of garlic, also minced. And to get things really nice and pasty, something that I personally like doing is taking a sprinkle or about an 1/8 teaspoon salt, mixing it with the minced garlic, and then chopping everything together for another 2 to 3 minutes until it's basically a totally uniform paste. But it's completely up to you. Either way, just fry those over a medium flame until they're fragrant, about 1 minute, then toss in a tablespoon of tomato paste. Today, I'm using an Italian tomato paste because I do kind of like Italian tomato paste, plus I'm a sucker for the tube. But just let that fry to stain the oil. Optionally, toss in a teaspoon of a red fragrant chili powder like Kashmiri or gochugaru. Fry that to stain the oil, then go in with your tomato mixture. If you blended it like I did today, it is going to be kind of frothy. So I like to boil that on a medium-high flame to let that subside a bit. Then add in 2 cups of water, or stock in an ideal world, or a combination, dealer's choice, and the seasoning up here on the screen. Mix well and let that all simmer together for at least a half an hour. And after that time, just season it to taste. My tomatoes today, they were a little on the sour side, so I also tossed in another 1/2 teaspoon of sugar. And no matter what, finish it all with a good sprinkle of white pepper powder. And then, now, this is good for noodles and eggs. Now, for the eggs, we're going to be frying our eggs like the noodle shops, which are basically shallow fried by any other name. So this is going to be easiest if you have a round bottom wok. So we'll teach you how to fry them in this in just a second. But if you don't feel like walking that mile, that's also completely fine. I totally get it. Really, any style of fried egg is going to be pretty delicious here. Just try to keep the yolk a little on the harder side. But if you do want to fry some eggs in this style, first just crack 2 eggs, being really careful not to break the yolk here, and then toss it in some sort of easy-to-pour container like a Pyrex. Then get your wok piping hot and add in a 1/2 cup of your rendered lard to the wok. Then flame on medium-high. Heat up the oil until it's smoking, and then pour the egg in. It's going to aggressively and really satisfyingly puff and set. So gently swirl it around to allow everything to fry evenly, while also scooping a little bit of the hot oil over the yolk to let everything set. And when it sets, flip it and cook for another 20 to 30 seconds on the other side. Then flip that again to ensure perfect golden brownness, and then continue to fry it to your own liking. Then just scoop that to the side of the wok, letting all that excess oil drain out, and then transfer it over to a paper towel lined plate. And then lastly, something that specifically that Kangji Jiandanmian serves with theirs is a bit of pickled chili oil. It's optional, you can add it if you want, but both me and Steph Really, really like the addition. Now, we have an entire proper recipe for this stuff in our every Sichuan chili oil video up here on the screen. But I did kind of think that it would be, I don't know, a little obnoxious to make you go chasing that recipe in order to make this one. So today, this is what we decided to do. We took 15 grams of fresh spicy chilies, heavy facing, Thai bird's eye, that kind of thing, and together with 3 cloves of garlic, finely mince those all together. Then, in a hot wok or pan, swirl in a tablespoon and a half of oil and then just fry those over a medium flame. Fry them past fragrant or until they begin to kind of dry up a touch, about 2 minutes or so. Then swirl in a half tablespoon of rice vinegar or white vinegar if that's all you have. Then just mix, remove, and that is going to be our optional spicy sour topping. Which then brings us to noodles. Today we're using 100 grams per serving of a dried Sichuan-style alkaline noodle. But you could also use fresh noodles here, 150 grams worth in that case. And if you can't find Chinese-style noodles, I do think that a nice, thin, Japanese-style ramen noodle would also be really good here. But either way, once those are cooked, lay those in a bowl, and then this is good to serve. So the quantity of soup and everything today is going to be good for 3 servings. So just take your fried egg and lay it over, and then smother the tomato soup all over everything. Toss in a generous handful of your crispy pork, a good sprinkle of those scallion greens, optionally some of our pickled chili oil sub or the real deal, and then with that, now you have some tomato and egg noodles.
So when we make this kind of noodles, we'll usually make the base first and then prep all the toppings and then cook the noodles at the end. And once the noodles done, we'll just bring it to the table so that everyone can just assemble their own bowls of noodles. So right, check out the recipe in the description box. A big thank you for everyone that's supporting us on Patreon, and of course, subscribe for more Chinese cooking videos. Let's try it out. A little salty, but it's okay.